Hello, for the Copyright Act of 1976 allows us to be able to take documentation and to use it for educational and entertainment purposes. I definitely make sure I state that emphatically so there's no copyright strike attached to me. But I'm pulling out a video from the great Kevin Samuels, the late great Kevin Samuels, on narcissistic modern women. This could also apply to modern men as well. I want to make sure because I know there's always going to be a woman that's going to say, hey, well, men can do it too. It's a tactic that a lot of people do. It's a very feminine tactic. And then it's like, I know you are, but so am I. I know you are, but so am I. Well, one of the things about maturity is that you get to learn about your mistakes and you get to own them and accept them. And you don't put it back on the other person. Guess what? They have mistakes too, but God's going to judge them on theirs. We're talking about you judging you on yours. The scripture says, judge yourself by Matthew chapter 7, judge yourself or you shall be judged. So I want you to hear this statement by the late great Kevin Samuels, and we're going to say no medical or clinical diagnosis claims are being made because he's not licensed by a company or a business. But just because you ain't licensed don't mean that the study of psychology isn't accurate. And you'll see it's very accurate. All right. This point right here comes at 36 minutes, or probably to about 50 minutes or so. And because y'all attention span is low, slow, and low, and you can't do a 2 hour and 41-minute show like most of us that have high attention spans can, we are just blessed that maybe you pull out one thing that hits you hard out of his 2 hour shows, and may he rest in peace because these shows are phenomenal. They're phenomenal. And I want you to hear this. This is about Will Smith and any man that marries a Jada Pinkett type woman. Let's clarify and let's state a little bit of the facts. Will Smith was a rapper growing up in the 90s that was known as being a conscious rapper, and he became very famous in The Fresh Prince of Bel Air. 6'4", tall, light skinned, the typical man, but he wanted to have the thug, the actress, the it girl. There was one girl he fell for, and men do this all the time. He fell for Jada Pinkett Smith. If you understand what Jada was, go back and study Jada Pinkett Smith from the standpoint of when she was on Different World, Cosby Show back in the 80s and 90s. The fact that she was a friends with Tupac Shakur, a young man who was gifted in acting. They both went to Baltimore School of the Arts. Sadly, Mr. Tupac Shakur, because of the way the society ran and the poverty he was raised in, became interested in the worst of the worst and pushed the word of thug life and the culture of thug life, which caused him his death. It was because of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls that I left the hip hop world because I could not understand why two good men that were young, my age, were the same ages, 24, would die because of East Coast, West Coast rap beef that was pushed by the white companies at that time, Rick Rubin, Def Jam, and everyone that made billions of dollars to this day off of their music. Now, what happens to all the way to today? Well, they tried to give Mrs. Jada Smith roles on film, but she really couldn't act. The only movie she's known for is Set It Off, where it's about black women go rob a bank and they go set it off. I mean, it's the logic is like asinine. And then Girls Trip. Will Smith on the other side, he played Muhammad Ali. He played these classic actors. He also played homosexual too. He played a lot of these roles that, of course, the quote unquote Academy wanted him to play, and he became very famous. But he never was fully accepted. Will Smith was the Whitney Houston of rap. Will Smith was the Whitney Houston of rap. The difference between Will Smith and Whitney went after Bobby Brown. Will Smith went after Jada Pinkett Smith. You're going to notice that when you've been live a long time, you can see similarities in a lot of things. Will Smith didn't die because of Jada, but Whitney died because of Bobby Brown. I said Will Smith went after Jada. Whitney went after Bobby. I should have said Bobby Brown. If you don't know who Bobby Brown was, go and look him up on the line in the 80s, New Edition, Don't Be Cruel. Bobby Brown was the bad boy. He was the first of the first bad boys of music. Oh man, dude's got so many kids out there, so many tragedies. And what happened to his life? His kid, his wife dies tragic of drugs. Daughter of the wife dies tragic of drugs. Whitney Houston was the global pop star that was the. I mean, she was. Everybody knew that she should have been the Diana Ross of the 80s and the 90s. And what happened with Diana Ross? Diana Ross went and married a white man out there in England, living her best life, made mixed kids to Tracy Ellis Ross, who comes back to America to play Blackish and all kind of shows to the black family because she never was going to be accepted by the Europeans. As any time you have black DNA in you, you're going to be disrespected and non-accepted by the European community. That's just the price of the curse of the law. So now, how does this, what the statement I just said, all that I just said, which is a lot of good information, if you listen to it real slowly, play it back. How does it apply right here to Will Smith and the Jada Pinkett slap? I heard that was what I heard the day this happened and watched it on the TV when Chris Rock said G.I. Jane 2. Can't wait to see you in G.I. Jane 2, Jada. And the funniest thing about this, I want you to think about this for y'all who got mad 3 years ago when this happened. Jada Pinkett Smith has alopecia like a lot of black women. That's one of the reasons why, because they will put it on weaves. The weaves going all the way back to the 90s and the 2000s. We used to rag on women that got weaves. Not wigs, weaves, meaning sewn into their scalp. So it destroys their hair follicles, therefore they become so-called alopecia, which is ridiculous. Now today, girls have figured it out. I'm going to just cut my hair bald. So because of what happened with Jada Smith, a lot of women today in the black community are going bald. You'll notice, not in the white community, because if a white girl goes bald, you know she got cancer. In the black community, black girls going bald because they realize that, hey man, I can't be wearing a wig. I can't be wearing this wig. I can't wear this weave. I can't sew it on my head. So basically, what Jada did has now opened up 3 years later a movement for black girls going bald. There was a movie by Sanaya Lathan which was talking about the whole aspect of going bald and living your life as a bald black woman, like an African. Now, we're looking at this video from a hindsight from 3 years later, which is always good to go back and study what happened 5 years, 10 years, 15 years later, and learn from it. So again, what he says in the second now is so powerful about the psychology that the Deuteronomy 28 curse has done to our African American community. And I say African American specifically because we're the number one culture that is used across all of Africa. It's Africans come to America and copy us to this day. And they swear to God they don't do it. We do not go to Africa and copy them. They come to America and copy us. That's why there's a whole FBA versus Africans battle right now, because the foundation of black Americans are saying, you're copying our swag, you're copying our music, you're copying our attitude, you're copying everything, but you don't give us any credit. So we're done with you. This is good. Because what they'll make anybody do is they'll think 4 times. If I copy black folks and I don't acknowledge them, they're going to rag on me. And now what's that going to do? It's going to make me not want to copy them, which is good and bad. It's bad because then nobody wants to copy us. But guess what? Tomorrow and 25 years from now, we're going to come out with something great again. Why? Because it's greatness in us regardless of what they say. We make something out of nothing. We take the worst and turn it to the best. We take the worst neighborhoods in the black community and turn them into hip hop. When then hip hop becomes the most multi-trillion-dollar industry and people play hip hop music today, I hear it every day. I hear it right in my room. The music is played on TikTok every day, every day. Where does that come from? It don't come from it comes from African Americans. So listen to this powerful statement. And as a historian and a person that studies history, which everybody should be a student of history, learn from what he just said. Shout out to the late great Kevin Samuels.
A glance what novelists can't put into words. If you've ever been around somebody if you ever been around a man who had a narcissistic mate or girlfriend, and she could look at him in a certain way, and all of a sudden he would just snap. Come on now. Anybody ever seen this before? Slow the chat room down. The chat room is already slowed down. Anybody ever seen this? A narcissist and what they will do? The impact they can have on somebody. I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, I had a best friend, a good friend when I was in my 20s. And the impact the women that he would have on him, this dude would be willing to risk his whole freaking neck over a woman who kind of liked him. And that's the funny thing. It would be different if modern women, if Jada Pinkett Smith is an avatar for modern women, Will Smith is an avatar for the danger modern men having in dealing with modern women. You become an exhaustible resource that you will be used up until you break. And then you'll be discarded because you were never their first pick. And there's only one way that men who are dealing with such women need to do. You got to get away from them. There is no therapy that fixes this, not in mass, because it ain't about you. It's about something going on with them. And you can usually see this woman and her relationship with her mother is chaotic. They look more like friends than they are mother-daughter. Oh, I'm going there. You deal with a woman who moves this way. I've seen this so many times in my life, it's not even funny. This is what I was talking about on Friday. The daughters fear the mothers. They're more like sisters. But this is the boy that gets created in this environment. His manhood is never affirmed. He's always trying to overcome and trying to be a man at 9 years old. When's somebody going to sit down and tell the little boy Will Smith, you've done enough? You've done enough. When does he get the masculine respect women keep telling men they get? I could be in my feminine if X, Y, and Z. Well, if Will Smith can't get it, why do you think men should believe y'all? If Will Smith, $20 million a picture Will Smith, somebody Google Will Smith's net worth. Will Smith, if Will Smith can't get it, why do you think men en masse believe they're going to get it? Anybody? Will Smith's net worth? Will Smith. Will Smith's approximate net worth. $350 million. He ain't broke. Kanye out of there. Pete Davidson. What you get when you get a woman who always wants the spotlight, even though Kim did, drop a bag on Kanye, and Kanye got his own issues. Come on, man. Why is this stuff important? Because now we get to talk about mental health and relationships. Dealing with somebody who always wants the spotlight, Aisha Curry. Jealous of your man. Always trying to wait until his star declines so you can get in his shine. Making you feel like you crazy because you don't want your wife taking booty pictures on Instagram to the point to where She should be able to get men sliding in her DM. Come on, man, we can come at this any other kind of way. And will convince you to allow them to do bad things and make it sound like it's a good thing for you guys. You know why? So you can excuse their bad behavior. And then you do it because you think, well, that'll show her I love her. That'll show her. And all you do is walk away feeling guilty because you've given permission for her to go sleep with another man, do bad things, whatever it is, and you've given your permission where you said, yes, better to be alone, gentlemen, than to deal with a modern woman. I'm going to say something that's going to be really controversial now. Hold on. As much as I'm a proponent for nuclear families, do you guys not notice the amount of men, especially men with money, who are choosing just to make babies out of wedlock and paying child support? Why do you think that is? One, because you can only be responsible for 17%. They can't get their hands on the other 80% of your income. Number one. Number two, you ain't got to live with that woman. Think about what we're talking about. That men who want to be fathers are choosing to be baby daddies. The more money and more resources they get, because the modern woman in many ways can be too problematic. But whoa. But when I say something,
What do you think about that question and that statement? What do you think about that provocative statement? I'm gonna talk about it. That men, wealthy men, are choosing to just have babies with a woman and not marry them and take care of that woman because they know that the woman only gets 17% of their income. And if they make it millions, that's a lot of money. But still, the child is not with the man in a marital nuclear unit. What do you think about that? It's an individual that grew up in a divorce home. My mother left my father because of his adultery and his affairs at an early age. She also was very uninformed and ignorant. That's the word we use for uninformed. And because her mother had relationships with other men and made children with those men, she had my grandmother, her mother, had three sets of kids with three different men. And it could have been more, depending on the number of men she'd been with. Fortunately, she was only with three different men. And of course, back in those days of the 50s and the 60s, they got pregnant because birth control had not come out like it is today. There was no morning after pill in 1930. People just had a baby. They had ran. They had to have a horrible, abortion, or they just gave the child up to the auntie and passed it off as an aunt, as a sister instead of a cousin instead of the child, because again the shame was so great, which is good, on a woman who got pregnant. Today the shame isn't there anymore. Today women say, I'm pregnant. Cardi B, I got a baby. I got a child, and the guy's like, wow, I got my babies. And so I'm gonna come from a spiritual context here, because the reality is I'm a pastor and I have to think from that perspective, and I praise God I do. No matter how bad a woman is, I understand why men don't want to marry them. But then at the same time, they love having sex with them, and children are created by the women deciding when. Everyone knows that most of the time, when a child is created, and I heard a statement made by Kevin Samuels in one of his previous videos, and someone wrote a comment. It was this comment: most children are not created through planning; they're created through having a good sexual time. So what that means is it's because of so-called sex, and a woman, knowing that she's going to have so-called sex, doesn't take a pill to prevent a pregnation and gets pregnant. Now we live in the world of OnlyFans today. We live in the world of OnlyFans, and that everybody today is being told I have to do anal sex, vaginal sex, oral sex. I have to do sex with multiple people to show my love as a woman. But the men are the ones pushing it. Let's be clear. It ain't the women always are gonna be second because God had created man to lead, and he does. Women only do what men want them to do. Women could say anything they want, but the facts of the matter is, when it comes down to it, if a man has everything that multiple women want, those women will do whatever that man says because he's got the wealth, the power, the prestige. He's got what we call the three sixes: 6 foot tall plier, 6 pack abs, 6 figure or more salary, 6 figure, 7 figure, 8 figure, etc. I heard a statement made years ago by Mr. Samuels here in a video, and the title was called "Single Woman, a Single Couple of One." Couple of one. And whenever you go to a restaurant and you are asked to be seated, they say how many is in your group. And if you say two, they go a couple of two. But a lot of women are not married, so they go to a restaurant by themselves. And so they're a couple of one, and they sit you down, of course. And we have a preponderance of this in Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm at. And the guy, we have Dr. Samuels, I call him Doc, but he was like a PhD in the mind, may he rest in peace, was talking to a 25-year-old pretty privileged girl that came out of Seattle, Washington, mixed with all kind of races. So she had that curly hair, light skin, mixed girl. And she was going to Washington, D.C. at the seminary to become an ambassador. Now, to be an ambassador means you're in the world, you're in politics, okay? Not even missionary, ambassador. So he asked her a question: you want to have a life where you don't have to worry about having, do you want to have kids? Yes. How many kids you want? I want 2 kids, and I want to adopt 2 kids, so that's 4 kids. Okay. How much money do you think a man needs to make to give you the kind of life that you believe you deserve? And she said about $500,000 a year. This is a 25-year-old woman, pretty privileged 25-year-old woman who is thinking that I'm going to find me a $500,000 a year African American who is going to wait for me for 2 years and I have sex, plus the 1 year preparing for this amazing wedding, and then is going to let me out. I'm going to have 2 kids from him. That's, of course, 2 9-month periods, plus the time it takes for the body to heal, adopt 2 more kids, and I don't want to have to work and basically I want to be a mother and be an ambassador. Now, ambassador means you're going out of country, you're going back and forth, you're going out of the country. And that means that you ain't gonna be there for your children. You have to have a nanny. He's making $500,000 a year, so he is gone working his tail. And here's where the rubber meets the road. The question Dr. Samuels asked was, how many black men in 2022, when this was videotaped, 21, how many black men do you think? And this was the last video of his life. He actually passed away the next day after doing this video. It's very prophetic. Go on YouTube and you can see the last. Go to lives. They have different categories: videos, lives, shorts. Go to the live column and you'll see the videos in order of dates. It's the last video he ever did, and he basically said that there's only 22 million African American men at that time, give or take. Those have passed away, have been born. But let's just say out of 22 million, those between the ages of 18 to 35, because she's 25. So the maximum she'll marry, what she said, was 15 years older. So he had to be 40 years old, and he had to basically make $500,000 a year. What is the percentage of black men who have already made it at 40 making that kind of money? She never said anything about building. She never said, I need to meet a brother, right, that has nothing and we build together like our ancestors did. Today it's about, I want to have it at this level. I want it when it's done. And Kevin's like, no, you can't have it that way. So the statistic was that basically 1% of 22 million, or if we even subtract the kids, 1% of, let's say, 15 million African American eligible workers make $500,000 a year. Do the math. Divide 1% by 17 million. What you get? 0. What? It's not even 1%. I mean, it's 1% in the name, but when you think about it from the math perspective, the odds are so limited. And like you said, those women are wanted by every race. Now we have a race war because every race wants that kind of African American. They go after them all. They go Asian, white, European. They go through. They want that black guy because if you're making that kind of money, and he's also gifted because he has an African DNA, he's a win. In this culture right now, where it sells to be typically African wealthy black. So what does that mean for our sisters? Oh man, it means this girl's in trouble. And so as it relates to the statement, black men are saying that, and I hate to say it, I disagree with these brothers, but I understand why. They're saying that they would rather have a child that they're not going to be able to see because wifey, ex-girlfriend, is going to keep that child away from that man forever. She's going to talk negative to him. She's going to disrespect him in front of the baby. Why? Because she's angry that he never picked her. So Kevin Samuels doesn't explain that part. That yeah, he may make a baby out of wedlock. He may go and have a child, but he don't recognize the women raised the child. So if the woman hates your guts because you did not love her, your child is going to hate your guts because you did not love his mother. Do you understand? So therefore, it's a lose-lose. Oh yeah, you can say I got a legacy. Oh yeah, you can say I got children, but really, what do you really have? You have basically, you are a man who studied. You are a cow, a bull, a cow who just made multiple cows going through life. It's a lose-lose, man. It's a lose-lose. So I don't agree with everything that Brother Samuel says. No, of course not. Because he's a minister. He was a student of the Bible. But I also have to say I agree with some of the things that he says. And I go through with a fine-tooth comb, analyzing and dissecting and pulling out the truth and talking about what I think is opinion. And these are all opinions, but they're based on some evidence in psychology that we can go and look up. And if you are an individual that is in the relationship world and you've been struggling for 15, 20, 25, 30, 45 years, you need to get some knowledge or you are going to continue to struggle for the remaining years of your life. And who wants to do that? Nobody. Nobody.
Like that though, I get labeled as a misogynist. You're a misogynist. You hate your mom. Really? Really? Black men, let me talk to y'all in particular. You know, one of the reasons we fall victim to this in more spectacular ways than most men, because we have an over reverence for women in our community. We're still trying to make up for the sins of our fathers and still trying to overcome all the bad programming we've had from the women in our community about the overall black male image. Your daddy wasn't this, or even if it's not particularly your father, how do you hear women around you talking about men? And then you, a little boy, growing up to be that man, you're trying to prove that you're not that boy. You want to do something different. You don't want to have any. You don't want more Will Smiths growing up to becoming the tippy top of his profession, and being and then exploding. We have to start affirming men. Ladies, lovely ladies. Shout out Dennis Sperling. I got one simple question. What kind of world do you want? Do you want a world of weak, snowflake, sensitive men? How do you win? Shout out to Jordan Peterson. He made the point when he's talking to Kathy Newman, that there is intense pleasure in temporary domination. This is why people do it, but it is a suboptimal solution. A lot of women are sitting around, I wish I had a man like Will Smith, I wish I had a man like what people believe Russell Wilson is. But is that an optimal solution? What kind of men are those in the eyes of other men? And the answer is they don't care. The answer is they don't care what kind of men those men are in the eyes of other men. All they care about is themselves. This is why I said last night on Instagram, women need to stop talking about what men should do when it comes to confrontation and violence, because women do not understand male violence. You don't 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 understand male violence. And go watch that video last night, how I sat back and told women that y'all just don't get it. They just don't get it. And they will say they do. They will say they do. And I'm like, no, you really don't. Why don't you understand? Because you don't have to deal with the consequence of that violence. Oh, but Kevin, it was just a slap. It was just a slap. Okay. It was just a slap. That's on my story. I don't feel like putting it up here, but go watch the slap championships and watch people get knocked the French toast out on a simple slap. Because men can deliver deadly violence to another human being through just our hands. Women cannot generate that kind of force. Not the average female. Not even Big Shirley. Big girl getting better. Shirley.